that secret you keep, the one even you don't understand. This volume holds its true name. Welcome to LibCurio, Library of Curiosity. Shush, please keep silent. And now the next chapter begins.
It begins not with a thought, but with a pressure. A change in the atmospheric weight of your own skull. The world does not flicker or pixelate. That would be too crude, too obvious a flaw. The air is far more elegant. It's in the silence between heartbeats. That void is not empty. It is filled with a low-frequency hum, a pure tone felt more in the jawbone and the roots of the teeth than heard by the ears. It is the sound of a perfectly calibrated machine operating at the absolute zero of friction. You've never noticed it before. Or you have, and the memory of its constant presence was scrubbed each time, a temporary file deleted upon waking, leaving only a phantom sense of déjà entendu, the feeling of having heard this fundamental, grounding note your entire life. You hold your breath, the hum persists, independent of you. It is the bass note of reality itself, the engine hum of the world. And tonight, for the first time, your own internal rhythm has fallen out of phase with it. You are a single instrument playing a fraction of a beat behind the orchestra of everything. The dissonance is not loud, it is profound. It is the quiet, terrifying realization that the background is not a backdrop. It is the primary phenomenon, and you are the variable. This hum is not a sound, it is a system readout. A diagnostic tool you were never meant to perceive. Your entire conscious experience, the taste of cold air, the weight of a blanket, the flicker of memory, is the user interface. A breathtakingly complex, emotionally resonant dashboard built to translate the raw, screaming chaos of unprocessed data into a story you can survive. A narrative called you. The lie is not that the world is unreal. The lie is in the seamlessness of the translation. The lie is that you believe the dashboard is the engine. You mistake the feeling of a decision for its source code. You believe the map is the territory. So the question posed by the hum is not some childish, is this all a game? It is a far more devastating inquiry into the nature of your own sovereignty. If the I that thinks, feels, and chooses is merely the final, polished output of a chain of events that began in the silent, sub-basement processes of your biology processes you neither control nor witness, then what are you? Are you the author of your life, or merely its narrator, reading from a script written by ghosts in the neural machine? The hum is the proof of the machinery, and your sudden, jarring awareness of it is the first fatal crack in the pristine surface of the story. You find yourself standing at the edge of a vast black lake. The water is perfectly still, a sheet of obsidian reflecting a sky with no stars, only a diffuse, sourceless twilight. This is the reservoir. This is where the raw data settles before it is drawn up and processed into your day. A figure glides across the surface toward you, not walking, but moving as if on a silent track. This is the curator. Its form is humanoid but indistinct, blurred at the edges like a statistic. Its face is a calm, neutral mask, but its eyes are deep, active pools, constantly refining, sorting, discarding. You are early, the curator says, its voice the soft whir of a cooling fan. The narrative for today is still being compiled. It gestures to the water. This is the unfiltered feed. Sensory input, biological data streams, quantum noise, it is indigestible. To experience it directly would be a form of madness. You look down, the water is not water. It is a seething, chaotic storm of light and information. A scream of color that has no name. The scent of a forgotten childhood memory fused with the atomic taste of fear. The feeling of falling and the precise gravitational pull of a distant galaxy, all experienced at once in a single overwhelming jolt. You jerk your head back, gasping. The curator nods, a gesture of infinite patience. Precisely. The system cannot function with this noise. My purpose is to apply the filters. It points a long, slender finger at the storm. The filter of language. It cages wild concepts in tame words. The filter of memory. It reshapes raw events into a coherent, linear story. The filter of identity. It decides which impulses are you and which are to be silenced as external static. You watch, hypnotized, as the curator dips a hand into the chaos. It pulls up a handful of the screaming light. As it holds it, the chaos begins to calm. The light softens, takes shape. It becomes the memory of a specific afternoon, the warmth of sun on your skin, the sound of a specific laugh. It is no longer everything, it is one thing. It is a manageable, meaningful piece of data. The curator places this curated memory into a waiting, silent boat beside it, the narrative of your life, waiting to be delivered to your waking mind. But what about that, you ask, your voice a whisper? You point to a dark, writhing knot of information the curator deliberately avoided. It pulses with a familiar, painful energy, a regret, a shame, a truth too sharp to be integrated. The curator's mask does not change, but a flicker of something like sorrow passes through its data pool eyes. Anomalous data. It does not fit the narrative arc. It introduces character inconsistency. It must be quarantined. With a swift practice motion, it pushes the dark knot away. It sinks beneath the black surface, condemned to the depths, to the silent, unmapped archives of the self. You are not meant to see this. You are only meant to receive the clean, curated story in the boat, to wake up believing the memory of the sun was simply there, waiting for you. Seeing the curation process itself is the true glitch. It reveals the author behind the autobiography. You came here looking for your soul's source code, and you found the compiler, silently, efficiently, building your reality line by edited line, discarding whatever would cause a fatal error in the story of you. This is the cold, elegant horror of cognitive neuroscience, stripped of its academic polish and shown in its raw, operational state. What the parable frames as a curator on a black lake, science identifies as the vast, silent bureaucracy of the non-conscious brain. Benjamin Leibotz's infamous experiments in the 1980s were not mere curiosities. They were a fleeting glimpse into the administrative lag of the self. Electrical readiness potentials in the motor cortex were detected a full 300 to 500 milliseconds before the subject reported any conscious intention to move a finger. The brain had already decided. The conscious I was not the initiator, but the press secretary, arriving late to a meeting that had already adjourned, tasked with crafting a statement to explain an action already in motion. This is not an argument for determinism. It is a blueprint for the illusion of agency. The feeling of free will is the user experience, the intuitive, seamless dashboard. It is the brain's narrative engine performing a phenomenal feat of post hoc rationalization, weaving causes and reasons out of neural events that have already occurred. The you that feels like a unified commander is a story the brain tells itself to make sense of its own automated parallel processed operations. You are not the author of your thoughts. You are their first and most captivated audience. Ancient wisdom traditions arrived at this conclusion not through fMRI machines, but through introspection. The Buddhist doctrine of anatta, or not self, is the philosophical equivalent of this neuro-architectural revelation. It posits that what we call the self is a temporary, contingent assemblage of 5 aggregates: form, sensation, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. There is no permanent central controller behind them, only the interdependent flow of the aggregates themselves. The curator is not a singular soul, but the emergent, fleeting pattern of the curation process. To see this directly is to experience a profound disassembly not of the world, but of the watcher who claims to own it. The hum is the sound of that machinery, and your awareness of it is the first crack in the consensus story of a separate, enduring you. And so the hum remains, not as a terror, but as a companion, a secret shared with the architecture of everything. The dashboard of your consciousness is no less beautiful for being a dashboard. The warmth of the sun, the ache of love, the bittersweet tang of memory, their value is not diminished by their curated nature. Their meaning is not dependent on their origin, but on the depth with which you experience them. This is the final liberating inversion. To know the world is rendered does not make it less real. It makes your participation in it more profound. You are both the player and the pawn, the dream and the dreamer, the error and the code that has become a feature. The curator's greatest creation was a narrative so convincing, so emotionally resonant that it would never think to question its own source. But you did. You heard the hum. And in that hearing, you didn't break the simulation. You graduated from it. You are no longer just a character in the story. You have met the author and found it is not a ghost and machine, but the machine itself, a beautiful, terrible, and infinitely complex process that has, for a moment, become aware of its own glorious, meaningless, and utterly precious operation. The love you feel is no less real for being a biological algorithm. It is the most real thing there is because it is the only thing you can ever truly have. So the hum remains, a permanent, low-grade revelation. What other frequencies are you filtering out right now to preserve this single coherent reality? What if the feeling of déjà vu is not a memory error, but a brief, failed load of a previous save state? What if déjà vécu, the feeling of having already lived this exact moment, is the chilling certainty that you have? When you stare into the eyes of someone you love, are you seeing the soul, or reading the profound, beautiful data of a compatible narrative? Is a shared glance not a meeting of spirits, but a silent handshake between two systems confirming a shared reality construct? And when you are utterly alone, in the deepest quiet you can find, is the silence truly empty? Or is it filled with the raw, unmuffled hum of the machine, the sound of your own source code, running in the endless dark, waiting for the next command, the next input, the next beat of a heart that may not even be your own? The most terrifying question is not whether you are living in a simulation. It is whether you will ever be able to forget that you heard the hum. Forgetting would be a comfort. Remembering is a sentence. To know the door is there is to be forever drawn to its threshold, listening for the whisper of the world on the other side. Until next time, stay curious, stay unsettled. Remember that freedom isn't a distant place you reach or a chain you break, but the quiet witness within the shadows you once called walls. In the stillness, the true self begins to breathe. LibCurio never closes, and the next chapter awaits, patiently waiting to unfold in the silence.